All right, guys, welcome back to the third episode of Vocal Youth. This one is a little special because we have our first guest today, and we are, by the way, we are from the future. ये अभी live record नहीं हो रहा है. जैसे जैसे guest के साथ बाद में हम लोग intro record कर रहे हैं. So just to fill you
Yeah.
up on our guest, he is Mr. Neil De Silva. He's a author, a book writer, and
And specifically a horror author. Basically, he has written more than 12 books. He has also got featured in TEDx and lot of like interesting and engaging conversation हमने की है इस podcast में. So,
And just to let you guys know that this podcast is mainly in English. So if you're not an English speaker, this one is not for you. Because we try to do something a little different from our,
yeah.
other podcasts. But this one is special because we had a first guest. So we'll link Mr. Neil's the top selling books down in the description and all his socials. So make sure to check them out, follow him, and enjoy the podcast. A special guest for you today, Mr. Neil De Silva.
Yeah. Thank you.
And today we're going to learn about. If you don't know about him, he's a very interesting author. He actually writes horror novels. He's a lot into writing, and we'd get to know him.
Yeah.
So let's start.
Thank you for having me on your podcast, Daksh and Darsh. Sorry,
Yeah.
and
No
Rudravaj.
worries.
Thank you. It's wonderful to always talk with people who are from North India because you are living in a place which is full of all these haunting experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come to know more about it when we talk. Looking forward to this.
Cool. So yeah, like right off the bat, I like to ask a question that I had in my mind since I have invited you to this podcast, right? After quitting your
Yeah.
business, was there any family pressure or something like that? Like why when you quit your business?
Quite the contrary. In fact, instead of family pressure, I had family support. So
Huh.
I had these coaching classes going on for a long time, for around 18 years. Immediately after my post graduation, I had started a teaching institute. But then that took a lot of my time. Coaching class, you know how it is from
Yeah.
day to right, and then late nights I would come. And then there was this particular time after a few years. I was a very good teacher. My students still remember all the lessons that I taught them very fondly. But then time came in my life when the creative part of me took precedence because I am a very creative person by nature. Even as a child, I used to write stories and distribute them to my friends, teachers, look for their feedback. So I wanted to do that kind of thing. I did not want to do this day in and day out coaching. And I also saw my students learning from me, going ahead in life, going all over the world. And I was there stuck in that one dingy classroom. So I was in a particular kind of state. I won't call it depression because that's a very strong word, but I was feeling quite low about myself. And this happened when I was somewhere, when I hit 35. Call it midlife crisis if you want to.
Yeah.
So at that time, I thought that I need to revamp my life. I need to do something with this, and this is not the direction I want to take. So we were on a vacation, me, my wife, my kids, and on this vacation, it was in Goa. After all the, one particular night there, I told my wife that I don't want to continue with the coaching class because I'm not happy with the way that it is not fulfilling me anymore. So then I told her the plan that I have always wanted to write a book. Even as a child, when I used to read the novels of Edgar Allan Poe and Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley, even Agatha Christie, Jeffrey Archer, I read a lot of crazy stuff. Also, Enid Blyton, for that matter. We all start with Enid Blyton, right? So when I used to read those books, even as a child, apart from enjoying the stories and the characters that were in it, I also wanted to create such worlds. I wanted, but it was one of my subtle, suppressed aspirations to have my name on the cover of a book. And this was always there. But then, you know how life took me in this journey where I was just making money. And then that was the time. Like in my late 30s, I told my wife, I cannot do this anymore. We are secure. Now I want to continue with my passion. And she said, yes. fine, go ahead with it. And that's how it worked. So there was never a moment of doubt. There was never a moment where a question was asked to me, at least by my family, that if we are shutting down the coaching class, then what are we going to do with our lives? So, you need that kind of family support when you are embarking on revamping your life, which I got. Even my kids were very young at that time.
Got it. So
So
you give
even
freedom to them in like career choices, right?
absolutely. Now, though my older child is in college, so just
Hmm.
because I was this guy who made my own life and nobody dictated things to me that you have to do this, you have to do engineering, you have to do commerce, you have to do this. Nobody told me anything. I shaped my life as I wanted to.
Right.
And that's the same freedom that I am rolling it over to my kids now, because that I think everybody deserves individual choice, individual freedom. We live as a closed society. That's fine. We are all social beings. But I think without that individual freedom, we all get stifled at one point in life. That starts coming up, cropping up. At least when you are a creative person like me. So
Yeah.
that's how I turned author. And this was 2015 when I published my debut novel.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had a question. Like you just said, you were a lot into the reading and writing. So what was the book that actually got you into reading slash writing?
Lot
The
of books,
first
lot.
book.
Yeah, I don't even remember when I picked up my first book to read, because my house was always inundated with books from floor to ceiling. My dad was a crazy bibliophile. He would read like there was no tomorrow, and not just read, he would hoard books. His only material possession on earth was books. So he would hoard them. In fact, when we moved house, we needed 3 truckloads to transport the books from one house
Oh
to the other. So yeah, he was, as I'm telling you, he was completely besotted with books. And there were all kinds of books in my house, all genres, irrespective of genres, languages, Hindi books, Marathi books, Kannada books, all kinds of languages, even some languages that he could not read. They were German books and he could not read German. So he just loved collecting books. I think somewhere that brushed off on me. I think in fact, your question should be which was the first book that affected you rather
yeah,
than,
yeah.
So I think the entire works of Edgar Allan Poe, that was where the turning point happened. I read Dracula, Frankenstein, all of them. Frankenstein was a book that left a lasting impression on me, of course. Even today, I go back to Frankenstein and just read it again just to understand how can a 19-year-old write such a story,
Uh-huh.
because there are so many layers to it. But the book that was the turning point in my life was definitely, any tale you take of Edgar Allan Poe. I think it was The Telltale Heart, the story which Edgar Allan Poe wrote. That one story where the person is racked with the guilt of having murdered someone, and how it plays on his mind, and how he gives himself up, because that is human psychology at work. That book shook me. I was very young when I read it, mind you, but it was gothic. The book is all Edgar Allan Poe's works are gothic, and even my house where I grew up, I'm talking about Mumbai of the 80s. It
Oh,
was not like how it is now. So
yeah, yeah.
Mumbai was quite secluded, right? Mumbai was a kind of sedentary place at that time, because we were in the northern suburbs of Mumbai, and there a lot of the civilization had not yet touched. So there were houses which were so few and far between, right? So in that kind of very, very, very silent atmosphere, I would read horror novels. Just think about it. So that's where Edgar Allan Poe actually touched my soul. Today, I consider him. I count very few authors as heroes or inspirations in my life, but I definitely count Edgar Allan Poe as one of them, because maybe if I had not read his works, my mind would not have veered in the direction of the dark gothic horror fiction that I write today. So yeah, profound for me.
So, like you just said that your father's influence came to you, that it brushed off to you. So you have two children, right? I read about you. You had. Do they write or read like influence from you, or
Uh,
they were on their own?
no, they do read. They do read a lot, but life of students today is not like how it was in my time.
Yeah.
They do not have a lot of free time. So there is
Mhm.
a lot of work from school, and plus there are lots of activities to do. They are occupied 24/7. In fact, they are busier than us adults at this point. Students are always more occupied. But in the vacations and whenever they get time, they do pick up books to read. And whenever we go to any bookstore, they will invariably, get grab a handful of books. So yeah, they do read. I will not say influenced by me, because I never tell them that you have to read. I don't force anything upon my children, whether it is about their eating habits or dressing habits or the friends they make or whatever. It's I give them the freedom. Yeah, but if I see something's going wrong, then of course I'll interfere. But otherwise, I don't like that mindless enforcing of rules upon children, because then they grow up suppressed, and that
Yeah.
always backfires. I need them to grow in the way they want to grow, or they are meant to grow, rather.
Yeah.
So yes, they do read. Their favorites right now range from Wimpy Kid
Yeah.
to right away. I'll take Lord of the Rings. So they read anything and everything.
Right.
It's the complexity of the subject does not matter to them.
Mhm.
Uh, my daughter is now reading Pygmalion and stuff like that, and she's just 12. So
Oh,
it's like that. Yeah, so they do read a lot of stuff. They do write also. So both of
Oh,
them have
cool.
gotten published in online publications and stuff like that. But this is not something that they're pursuing seriously. It's
Yeah.
like
kind of a
because
hobby.
yeah, because see, the world is so open now, right? Yeah, nowadays, a lot of people are writing without knowing that they are writing. Like we are
Hmm.
writing blogs, or we are writing on Facebook, we are writing on Instagram. We are also creating podcasts, which is also a kind of content creation. It is content creation. So we are all, in some way or the other, creating content
Mhm.
without our knowledge. And even books are evolving. So what we are talking about, books like the paperback, hardback models, they are also different now. We have ebooks, we have things that we can just read off the net. So yes, people are getting published in so many ways. My kids are also exploring those things. So while maybe some Puritans won't call them as writers, but they are writing in their own capacity, in their own ways, which
As
I
a
think we should
hobby.
encourage.
Yeah. That's great. Have you ever scrapped a book that you have completed or like half completed?
Tons of those. Yeah, so what my method is, I am always looking around. I'm always observing stuff. I'm always reading and researching. If something strikes me, a nice core concept, then I jot it down on my notepad. I keep it there.
Mhm.
Now, if some idea stays in my mind for even months afterwards, then I take it up and I start creating it into a big story, into a book. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes what happens is I don't plot my stories. I'm not a plotter. I cannot sit and outline, and I cannot do that. So I just start writing off the bat. And suppose if it works, I know it after a few chapters. If it is not working, I am all ready to chuck it. So, or at least put it on the back burner till the time
Right.
inspiration strikes me again. Now, this has helped me a lot because I have a lot of these unfinished drafts,
Mhm.
and I'm into web series as well. I
Hmm.
When it comes to books, I have written 12 books so far,
Yeah.
and I have like four more uh, proposals, or you can say agreements already. I'm
Mhm.
writing those books, so four more books are in the process of being written. So I think by the end of 2023, I'll have 16 books published, and I'm talking about both self-published books as well as books published with the leading publishers of the world, such as Penguin, HarperCollins, Hachette,
Yeah.
Rupa. They are all my publishers. I'm working with all of them. And I'm also writing web series. I'm also writing for shows. So currently
Oh,
I'm writing for four web series. So they are
nice.
all in the developmental stage right now, but I am the writer for them. So I've just started this last year, and these things take a long time to make. So when I write these web series,
Mhm.
we always need fresh ideas to start with. So
Mhm.
that is where that idea bank and all those unfinished drafts come in handy. because I take those ideas and I try to fulfill them
Fulfill
into
it.
some semblance of a story.
Right, right.
So yes, this is how
Like, do
some
you
of
use
the
any tools while
techniques.
writing? Any tools while writing?
It's just my Mac and my keyboard. That's it. Nothing else.
Okay.
Nothing
Like
else.
many,
I'm a
I
very I'm a very atypical author. You know, when we say authors, the common idea that is that a person sitting in a lonely room, having endless cups of coffee, and listening to soulful music, writing like that. No, not at all. I'm quite an outgoing person, and I just write when inspiration strikes me. So yeah, so no
that's
tools.
great.
I don't like. There were a lot of web applications nowadays to help
Yeah.
Grammarly.
supposedly help you in writing.
Mhm.
Like there are so many tools. So I tried them also when I was in my very early stages, but they didn't work for me. I like to build story the way I want to build it. I don't want a website template or a structured program to tell me how to do things. It won't work for me that
That's
way.
very
Because
creative.
sometimes they like manipulate the sentence into something else which don't actually want to say or convince
Yeah,
the reader.
yeah. You're talking about grammar tools and
Grammar
language
manipulation.
Yeah,
tools.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I have never even installed or downloaded Grammarly. I don't even know how it works because I don't need it. I'm good. I was an English teacher myself for so many years, so language is not a problem with me. And then I have a battery of editors working with me. For all my books, there were about 2 or 3 editors to fine tune the book to what it comes out in print. So with
Review
that
it
kind of
before
human
publishing.
power, yeah, with that kind of
Yeah.
human power, creative human power, you don't need the robotic power, the machine power. So
That's creative though.
yeah,
Like,
works for
So
me that way.
about the books about writing, like what is an like average amount of time which takes to complete one book?
hmm,
Very interesting question. Now, if I had written only one book, I would have told you a specific answer to that. But since I have written so many books, a dozen books and more going on, because the manuscripts are all done, I will say that a few books have taken me as short as 1 month to write. Like my most well known books, or one of my most well known books, Yakshini. That
yeah,
took me just about 21 days to write the 1 lakh word draft. So the first draft of it, and then of course the editing process took its own 1 year more. But the first draft came out within that because Yakshini was so. I could see the story so clearly, the characters, the settings, the scenes, one after the other, and the story was just kept on building up in my mind, and the characters told me the story. So sometimes it happens when the characters talk to the author.
right,
That's
right.
not purely a psychological thing. It really happens. I can hear my characters even in my sleep telling me, okay, this is what I want to do next in the story. So, okay, Yakshini built up on itself, by itself. I was just the agency writing it. But there is a book coming out this year of mine that in November it's going to come out, Sapna's Bad Connection. It is probably India's first digital horror thriller because there is a digital stalking by a ghost. That is the subject of the book.
Yeah,
So Sapna's Bad Connection took me 6 years to write. The reason is because
Oh,
that was quite a complex kind of story, Black Mirror-ish. If you know
yeah.
what Black
I'm
Mirror is,
aware of
it's
that.
quite in that zone. Yeah, and a lot of human psychology at work in the book. So I wrote so many drafts. There was a point when I did not want to publish the book, Sapna's Bad Connection, because I was not sure whether I should put this out in public. But finally, I am. The book went through at least 7 to 8 drafts, and that book took a lot out of me. Now I'm writing. I'm one day, not now, maybe 5 years down the line, I'm going to write an epic story, kind of, because every author always dreams of that kind of thing. An epic story, a story which will span a huge timeline, will have a lot of characters, there will be maps of their own. So, kind of a supernatural horror epic, right? So, that will take me, I'm very sure it will take me years. It will take probably the rest of my life. But that will be what, Game of Thrones did for G.R.R. Martin, or
Right, right, right.
what Tolkien is famous for. Yeah, Lord of the Rings for him.
quality
So
comes with time.
Yeah.
yes, that comes with time, and I don't think I'm ready yet to you know, embark on such a huge project.
Hmm.
I do want to write it eventually. I'm talking about the epic story that is in my mind. I do want to write it, but I want all the, mental preparation for it. And because I'm writing probably the first horror epic,
Hmm.
uh, it will, definitely need to be one of its own kind, right?
Right, right.
So yeah, I need to think a lot
Yeah.
about it before I
Do you
start.
travel while writing books, or it's like
That is
just
my mode of writing usually,
got it?
because when I'm writing some project and I what I basically end up doing is booking myself a cottage or a
Hmm.
homestay or something like that,
Yeah.
going out of the city, shutting myself inside, and that would be something like a small town or
Hmm.
something like that. Sometimes even a spooky place. I've had some experiences I've shared on my Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. I've
So
seen some reels. Yeah.
so I do that. I shut myself in
Mhm.
and I write, irrespective of what is watching me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do that. I do that also because see, my house is very silent by itself. I can write here also. But
Right.
when you're writing a different story, you're creating a world, right? So I also want to be in a different environment at that time. The familiarity is something that might bog you down, or it might be a
Right.
confining factor. So I need newness. I
Hmm.
need to change my space when I'm writing something. So yeah, I do travel for that. And I think I advise, in fact, every author to try that. When you're writing a book, just change the setting where
Yeah.
you are and
Hmm.
ideas flow.
Interesting. That's
Alright,
interesting.
so you mentioned your Instagram. I just checked your Instagram yesterday. I saw that you are a lot into fitness.
Hmm.
Oh, yes.
So what is like a routine, like a normal routine which you follow?
So before that, I'll tell you that I was in fitness all through. I mean, my, from about 15, 20 years now.
Hmm.
But I let go. I took it easy. And somewhere around 5 years ago, I lost the thread of going to the gym and just being fit. And then what happened is the pandemic and all happened. So we were
Hmm.
all stuck in our homes. So that time I became very unhealthy, actually very unhealthy.
Right. Right.
And my work also was writing. So sitting on my life was very, very, not at all an example of a good life, because I was just sitting on one chair almost 16 hours a day, and I was stress eating because I was just sitting there. I was ordering on Swiggy and stuff just like that, no end to it. And I was watching Netflix and chilling. So apart from the writing, so that made me very unhealthy. So
Hmm.
3 years ago, my weight had touched like 86 kgs.
Right.
So it had become, I had become, it was in the category of obese,
Hmm.
and I could not even move around. And then all those backaches started, chest aches started, which were very scary. I went to the doctor. Doctor said, heart is fine, but you have really put on weight. And blood
Right.
pressure was threatening to go high. So
Hmm.
it was at that time that I thought that I should not let gone of my fitness, which I was doing in my 30s. I'm 46 now. So then
Okay.
I thought I should get back into it. So during the pandemic itself, what I did was I started following along some YouTube fitness videos. There are some amazing channels there. So I worked along with them at home in the morning and in the evening. And there was a tremendous improvement, a great benefit, because I've got a lot of stamina. I'm quite blessed with that. So I could work out for like even 2 hours at a time. Plus I restricted the diet. All that junk food was out. All the rice and chapatis were out. It was all protein now for me. So that really worked. And then as soon as the lockdown lifted,
Hmm.
I went out for running. So I took up running because
Yeah.
running I need to do
I,
outside.
I guess
You
it
cannot
was
do it.
Yeah.
5 kilometer challenge per day, like 5 kilometer running.
Yeah, five kilometers is nothing. I mean, for me it is a lot because I
Yeah.
did not run in my life till about 1.5 years ago. I had never run before that. So yeah, now I'm doing like a 5 kilometer everyday challenge. Of course, Mumbai rains have taken over, so now
Yeah.
since a few
Yeah.
days I'm on a break. But still, I do run 5 kilometers a day, daily. Sometimes it touches 10 kilometers when I'm in a mood. On occasion, I've also gone to 21 kilometers, and now
Right.
my weight is like 65, so like 21 kgs down. Plus, I'm so much fitter. I'm writing better books. I'm writing better stories, and more important than that is the mental boost that you get,
Hmm.
the confidence that you get in yourself, that now you can do things. Because earlier I did not have this confidence. I was very sluggish. I just wanted to lie down and be sedentary. So again, this is an advice to all creative people, that we work our mind so much, but I think
Hmm.
along with we have to also work our body, because that, that adage, healthy mind in a healthy body,
Yeah.
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 that's true, that you need that. Otherwise, your creativity dampens. Yeah.
Right.
I'm planning to run a marathon, hopefully. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I'll definitely take up that challenge and see how it goes.
We will support you on that marathon for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That encouragement is also needed. That's why we are on social media, right? That's the whole point of it.
Validation is important as well.
Yes. 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 Very much.
Yeah. So, like, while you write so much of horror, right? So, do you have face any like sleep paralysis or
Mm.
like while you
I
write
did
those?
speak about that also on my,
Mhm.
okay, on a YouTube podcast. I've not
Mhm.
spoken about it
Right.
on, other social media yet. I will.
Mhm.
But yes, I am a sufferer of sleep paralysis.
Right. Right.
And this started when I was, like, I think, yeah, I was in my 20s,
Mhm.
when I had just started my coaching class that I told you about.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
my life was like, I was freshly out of my college, and
Mhm.
I had started this coaching class. That young dynamic guy who wants to take on the world. You get
Yeah.
the picture, right? 21, 22 was my
Right. Right.
age.
Mhm.
And I was working a lot. Mornings also I was teaching. I would come back late at nights. Afternoon I had only a short gap when I would return home for lunch and a little nap. It
Mhm.
was during those afternoons that sleep paralysis happened to me. It took over. Now, what is sleep paralysis, for those who don't know,
Yeah.
is that when you are lying down, or your nap or your sleep or whatever it is,
Mhm.
you have this sudden sensation that you are being confined, that there is a heavy weight on your chest, that something is suffocating you, something is trying to
Like
throttle.
you are
Like you,
like almost threatened,
yes,
threatened by something.
yes, and you feel as if you are in some kind of bondage. You're tied up. So you feel you are awake, but your eyes are closed. You can even see things around you with your eyes closed. So that would happen to me. Means the mind is conscious, right? So I would see people moving around when I was on the bed, and this is afternoon, right? This is not the dead of the night. This is the afternoon,
Right.
and I would have this feeling that something is sitting on my chest, some black kind of entity, shadowy figure, whatever,
Mhm.
with immense weight, and I could not move even a finger. I wanted to shout out for help, but there was nobody who would, means the words themselves would not come out, right? So it was a very, very debilitating kind of feeling, like you are powerless, intensely powerless. In fact, sometimes it went so bad that I would think I have died, that I've died in my sleep, and this is my soul state. You know how
Right.
they show in movies that the soul is still aware
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
body cannot move. So I actually had that feeling when sleep paralysis happens. It lasts for about a minute or two,
Mhm.
and then you snap out of it. So I would snap out, and suddenly one finger would move. Yeah, your
Right.
hand would move, and then you are able to, okay, normally function. Oh God, it is so. I mean, because I've gone through it, I know how scary it is.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't happen to me. There's a scientific explanation for this.
Mhm.
The scientific explanation is that when you are very fatigued, completely tired, physically exhausted,
Right.
the thing that happens is your brain wakes up and your brain tells you that, okay, you're ready, you have to do your work, but your body is not willing to wake up. So
Yeah.
your body is still, asleep while your mind is awake.
Mind is
This is when sleep paralysis happens. So because of that, your brain is trying to give the signal to your body to wake up, but the organs of your body are still so exhausted that they don't respond to the brain. So that happens for a few minutes because that is the time when the coordination re-establishes itself. But that is the period when sleep paralysis happens. Now, this is a scientific explanation for it. But then there is a paranormal aspect to it
Yeah.
because I did see that who figure sitting on my chest. I did have an out of body experience during one of these instances when I could see myself on the bed, which was very scary. Like it was like my soul had floated up to the ceiling and I could see myself.
Right.
So thankfully, I'm not having this as commonly as I had in my 20s. It's almost gone. But I do have them sometimes. Still, at nights, I have them now. And because I don't nap in the afternoons now that much. So it's in the nights. And in the nights when it happens, there's this momentary period somewhere. So it will always happen at this period of 2 a.m., 3 a.m., something that period, And you get this feeling that same thing. Something is strangulating you or holding you bound. You cannot move. It's very scary. Very, very scary. Those who have gone through it will know what I mean.
I've gone through that around 2-3 times, and it was like a
Okay.
totally different story. So yeah, it was.
What did happen to you?
So basically, like, मैं normally सो रहा था एक दिन, right? And it was first time when sleep paralysis. So like I was watching someone podcast. And after that, I just मैं podcast सुनते सुनते सो गया. I forgot to pause the podcast, right? And I guess वो around 2 hours का था. And in the middle, I got sleep paralysis. Like I was like, I was not able to move my body. It was not like कि कोई figure वगैरह था. It was like a simple thing. So, but it was although it was my first time, तो मैं बहुत ज़्यादा डर गया कि why I'm not able to move my body parts and stuff like that. And after 2-3 minutes when I got normal, then मेरे को side में दिख रहा था कि podcast चल रहा था, and that's why I was not getting into deep sleep. So yeah.
That is an explanation. Maybe your sleep was superficial, so that's it. But yeah, the figure that I'm talking about, the black figure, that's not a constant. That does not happen all the time. That happens very occasionally. For me also, it happened very occasionally. But when it happened, it was something that you won't forget.
So sometimes you don't see any figure, but you feel like there's someone who is watching you. Yeah, you feel fear.
You get that. I think it's purely psychological. I don't believe there is anything supernatural attached to it. But our mind plays tricks on ourselves a lot.
Especially when I was watching your beer podcast with beer biceps. I was watching at night with my few of my Discord friends. And when we completed the podcast, and मैं like सोने जा रहा था, and I was getting spooky vibes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
yeah. So yes, when you listen to horror, or when you read horror, or when you write horror, what happens is you amass these negative vibes because that is the thrill we are letting ourselves into. So what happens is because of that, your mind plays tricks.
Right.
I think that's the reason for it. But I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing to subject yourself to fear sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
The thing is, I have a philosophy, and that philosophy is that we cannot avoid fear or being afraid. We try to deny its existence. We try to, there are some people who will never watch horror, never read horror. Even if you tell them a horror story, they'll say, nahi sunna hai, mujhe mat bolo. There are people like that.
Yeah.
But the real world is filled with horror, right? How can you stay away from that? I think reading horror, listening to horror, it's an essential part of our lives because it emboldens us. It tells us and we know, a part of our mind knows that this is imagination, this is fancy.
Yeah.
But the horror that is there in the real world, that how will you face if it ever comes to you? If you cannot face the horror that we have created, the fanciful horror that I'm talking about. So that is why we lend ourselves to that thrill. And that is why I feel everybody should read horror.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about read horror of the most perverted kind, not necessarily, but even people who, Aren't our fairy tales also horror in a way? Think about
Yeah,
it.
it
Hansel
is.
and Gretel, what we read growing up, it has a witch in it, right? A witch who traps children in the middle of the jungle. For a child, that is horror. What is Beauty and the Beast? Beauty and the Beast is the story of a beautiful girl living with a beast in his castle and alone.
Right, right.
Again, horror. The story of Rapunzel, which children read so nicely and all that. Rapunzel is
They
the
enjoy
story
as
of a
well.
girl
Yeah.
Yeah.
trapped in the top at the top floor of a tower, and there's a dragon protecting her. Now that's scary. I would be scared if I was on the top of a tower and there would be a dragon hovering around all the time. So the thing is, we have been fed horror
Right.
all our lives without knowing that we have been fed horror. They are horror novels, only thing they are not branded as horror, and that is why parents feel that it is all right to give them to children.
It's safe to give. Yeah.
It's safe to give them to children. They are not. Okay,
Right.
I'll talk a little bit more, which might be a little bit more, like
Right.
controversial probably.
Yeah. No
But
issues.
isn't there horror? Isn't there horror in our epics as well?
Yeah.
There is. There are demons, there are vampires, there are ghouls,
Yeah.
there are rakshasas, there are asuras, and they are doing all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
it is scary.
Hmm.
Can you avoid that? No, there we lap it up.
Right.
There are some forms, some folk art forms in India where people paint their faces in scary
Yeah.
avatars and they dance.
I
Now,
see.
if those faces they come to you, I mean, you think about them in the middle of the night, you are going to get scared.
Yeah.
This is all the subtle horror that we
Hmm.
have in our culture. But despite that, when something is labeled as horror, we try to run away,
Right.
which is, I think, hogwash. I think we should all face horror. I think
Yeah.
you should embolden yourself through it. Just because something is not, I mean, something you don't want to face, it doesn't mean that it will not happen in your life.
Right.
We are going to do that. For example, I was very cowardly as a child. I still am. I don't believe myself to be a very brave person.
Right.
I was very cowardly as a child. I was scared of anything and everything, darkness, loneliness, people who died. I was scared of those things. How I overcame those fears? I overcame those fears in my childhood itself. I'll tell you an interesting anecdote, which I also plan to share on my Instagram later on.
Right.
But okay, I will give it to you also. Now, there was this.
Exclusive
First on
content.
Vokl Youth.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I've said this before. I don't even know if I remember if I said this on the Beer Biceps podcast, but
Right.
I'll share it with you nonetheless.
Right.
So I was very scared of darkness in the as a child and unknown places. Everybody is, that's fine, but I was like deathly scared. I would actually think that darkness is not a silent thing. There are entities in it, and if you go in the darkness, they will trap you, take you somewhere, and that my phobia was very personified in that manner. So I would see things in the dark, and I would have the illusion of those things being alive, moving, talking. Like even now, when you sleep sometimes, uh, at least it happened with me. I was alone at home sleeping, and it was night, of course. I woke up and I saw a figure sitting right next to me. God, I was so scared. So when I saw that figure, I somehow, it took me a minute or two to reconcile myself. Then I realized that it was not a figure, it was just a towel kept on a chair, but it was in that form that it looked like a figure. So
Yeah.
my mind did that. As a child, this was very, very deep. And there was this one time, I think I was just 11 or 12, when I woke up in the middle of the night and I was again taken up by that fear that I was sleeping in one room. Our house was a like 2 BHK room at that time. So I was very scared of the other room where nobody would sleep. Okay, all of us would sleep in the first one room. We were very small children at that time. So I was very scared of that other room. But that night, I was, something overtook me. I can't describe what it was, but it was something that just snapped and he said that, why are you so scared? What is there in that room? Let's go and see. So what I
Curiosity.
did, in the middle of the night, everybody was asleep, my parents, and I sat up. And it took me so much time to, just steel myself for what I was going to do, and I didn't even know whether I would do that. I got up,
Right.
still seeing my parents. I mean, okay. Then finally, I took a step. I came out of the room. That dark room was there ahead. I was petrified. I was almost like stunned. But then in that daze only, I just walked. I just went ahead. I just entered the room. I entered the room, went till the end of it, and came out. I don't know what I saw, what I did. I just went and came out. Now, doing that had such a cathartic effect on me. It was a therapy. My fear of the darkness went away. Because that night I knew I went in a dark place and nothing happened. Now, my mind told me, whenever a dark place is there in front of me now, my mind tells me, you went, as a child, you went in that dark room and you were thinking that there would be all monsters and creatures and whatnot, and nothing happened. Nothing happens. Go. And now I go. So this is how you conquer your fear. You do not conquer your fear by saying, अरे मैं तो horror पढ़ता ही नहीं हूँ, मुझे डर लगता है, मुझे रात को नींद नहीं आती है. No, that is nonsense.
Yeah.
Face it. Face it. And
Face
when
your
you
fear.
face it, you will know what is the difference behind it. Horror is therapy. It's a therapy of a different kind. It makes you braver.
Something
Interesting.
similar like that happened to me. Now I don't know what was that, because I had a phase, I started watching YouTube like only the horror genre. Like even my the main page, homepage, only horror came in it.
Yeah.
I was going through a phase. I was only watching horror. So one day from the time I woke up till I slept, I just watched horror all day.
Okay.
Now that
Now
day
that
was
is
interesting.
excessive. I would not advise anybody to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That is
Okay.
what gets interesting now, that I slept. Okay. Now I don't know what happened. Randomly, exactly at 2 a.m. I went to bed at 10 p.m. Exactly at 2 a.m. I woke up and I had a like heavy feeling in my chest, like something was on top of me.
Yeah.
Heavy feeling and
Yeah.
very strong, very strong. So, and I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, it was like something was hovering over me. So I couldn't sleep. I started scrolling through YouTube, not watching horror this time. I woke up till 5 to 6 a.m. until the daylight came out. And this same cycle almost repeated itself for like 4 days. I don't know why, but I used to keep waking up at 2 a.m. exactly at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to me.
Yeah. That
Was
happens.
something. Yeah, that was a really, like out of the world experience for me.
We
And
have something called as a biological clock. So our mind sets ourselves to that clock, and that is the reason if you have woken up at a particular time and had an experience, next night also your mind will tell you to wake up at the same time. So it's like for me, I never need an alarm. I wake up at 4 in the mornings because I go for my run. So I don't set an alarm for that at all. Just if I woke up one morning at 4, I went for a run. I enjoyed the process. Now every morning I automatically wake up at that time. So the same happened with you also, I suppose, on
yeah,
the distuff side.
And the thing that scared me most was I googled that I keep waking up at 2 a.m. and they scared me one something about angels and demons.
Yeah.
I told my mom and she said nothing will happen. Just be free. But
in India, there's
like
like a lot of things like jhad food
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah, if you're getting wake up, jhad food karao maine.
Yeah, that is the I think the stupid part of our horror that is there. Okay, so now Rudraksh, for your experience also, I'll tell you something that 3 a.m. is called as the witching hour.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you're sure of whether you know this.
Aware
So
of
it's said that it is the period when all the spirits are most active. Now, we are sometimes asked questions like, ये भूत सब रात को ही क्यों आते, दिन में क्यों नहीं आते? So the thing is, from what I know and from what my paranormal investigator friends tell me, the ghosts and spirits are there all the time. But we do not understand them. They are energies we don't feel because the daytime is abuzz with activity, right? There is traffic, there's this, the electricity is going on, and so we don't see them. But it is in the night that when all the other lights are off, That is the time when only their energy takes precedence,
Yes.
priority. And that is where you can feel the ghosts and spirits in the night. And 3 a.m. is this optimal time of silence.
Right.
It is exactly bang in the middle of the night's period. So that is the reason. In fact, if you Google this, uh, the majority of sleep deaths, the sleep deaths,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who die in their sleep without
Sleep.
explanation.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of these occurrences do happen. I know personally a student who was just like 16.
Right.
You also look like 16, 17. Don't get scared. So there was a
Right.
student of that age, and he was napping in the afternoon with his mother was also. This was afternoon that I'm talking about. Mother was watching TV, and the boy was on the sofa-like thing, and he had just come back from school, so he was resting. He shut his eyes. Mother was watching TV, and when the classes time happened, the mother went to wake him up, but the guy had died. He had mysteriously died. And a healthy kid, I mean, footballer and all that.
Right.
Nothing was wrong. He had never had an accident, never fallen sick, nothing. It was just like he passed away. Doctors were befuddled. There is no solution to this at all, unless the mother was lying and did something. But of course, mother, no. So
Of course.
this was no foul play at all. So this happened in the afternoon, but statistics reveals that the majority of the sleep deaths they happen at around 3 and 4. So that is why it is said, and this is actually a strong advice also, that if your eye ever opens at 3 or that zone, don't get up from the bed. Just don't get up, because your mind is also in that very strong restful state. It's not just, I'm not talking only from the ghost and paranormal angle. I'm also saying that this is the time when your mind has gone in that ebb, that complete bottom of the curve, restful state. And if you wake up, suddenly your mind has to come to that alert state, which is very dangerous. That is why things may happen, like you may just fall down and bang your head somewhere.
Yeah.
Even that can happen, and you may die because of that. I'm saying you don't get scared. I mean, people may die
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
that. So, so yeah, that is extremely scary. So when I wake up at 3 o'clock, I try not to come out of the bed. But 4:15 is the time that I feel it is safe, and because now my body is attuned to it, so it's fine.
It's a habit now. Yeah.
And now it's a habit, yeah. So yeah, but
So you work with paranormal investigators, or like they give you ideas to like book कौन से topic पे लिखनी and stuff like
I
that?
do.
Yeah.
So I have written 2 books with paranormal investigators so far. So one is Haunted. Haunted is with Jay Alani. He's a very, very famous paranormal investigator. If you, he's everywhere on Google. He has got very popular podcasts going on, and he's directing a movie now. Haunted has 10 stories of his paranormal investigations, which he did in the most haunted locations of India, including Kuldhara, Bhangad. These are, very, very scary places to go to. Mayong village, which is in Assam, which is considered to be the birthplace of evil, of black magic, birthplace of black magic of the world. It's Mayong in Assam. Lambi Dehar mines, which are in Missouri, where 20,000 people were supposed to be, killed in one night. It was somewhere in the 90s. It was a landslide or something like that, which happened within the mines. An enormous number of people died. Then the Three Kings Chapel, which is in Goa, which is again considered to be a haunted location, because it's believed that one of the kings had poisoned the other 2 kings. They were cousins, and then the locals killed that one king. So all 3 kings died in that chapel-like place, and today that place is considered to be very haunted. Then in Bangalore, there is this bungalow known as Vasvela, where the ghost of a dead woman could be seen. She was the only occupant of that house. So now that house has been torn down, but it still lasts. So these all places Jai actually went to. And not only did he go there, he spent nights and he tried to figure whether there were ghosts or there or not. And those answers are in the book, Haunted. So Haunted has become a very big hit, because paranormal people, enthusiastic people, they want to read such kind of stuff.
I
The
was.
biggest, I think the most enduring question is, असली में भूत होते हैं क्या?
Yeah.
And that is what Haunted answers. So the other book that I've written is with Sarbajit Mohanty. He is also a paranormal investigator, again very very famous.
Right.
So he has his case files, like people who have paranormal experiences in their houses. Like some people, their houses are haunted, or so they believe.
Right.
Then they come to Sarbajit, and Sarbajit and his team go there with their equipment. They have everything: GoPro cameras and ghost
Right.
meters and all kinds of zany stuff.
Cool.
And they go and they
gadgets.
try to figure out whether there is a science behind it or not. So yes, both of these paranormal investigator friends of mine shared stories with me, and those stories culminated into these books. So it's interesting to know from these people, because these are real life ghost hunters. People who actually go on this journey to see whether there's a ghost out there or not. While we are in denial and we say कि भूत नहीं होता है, नहीं होता है, नहीं होता है, हनुमान चालीसा पढ़ो. We are like that. These are the people who actually go to छेड़ो that भूत.
Right.
So
Like
I learned a lot.
There are some cases like paranormal investigators die very like very unnatural way, right?
Yeah, there is Gaurav Tiwari, to whom this happened. A very famous guy. So Gaurav Tiwari died when he was not while, but after a paranormal expedition that he had done. Yeah. So even my friends, Jay and Sarvajit, they both say that, if there is a ghost.
Right.
Now the thing is, 99.99% of the cases there is no ghost. It's like just, some explanation is there.
Right.
But there is that 0.001% chance that it cannot be explained, right? So it cannot be explained. So at that time, you are in this gray area where you think a ghost is there. This is the time you should not come out just like that. Now, Gaurav's mistake, I would like to call it a mistake, was that he came back despite finding something in that location. Probably. We don't know the mystery yet. Okay. The family doesn't say, nobody says Gaurav is gone. God rest his soul. But we don't know the answer to that. What Sarbajit does when he actually encounters a paranormal activity in a place is to cleanse that area. Now, there's a way to do it. Paranormal people believe that burning something because see, this is all energy, right? So you have to somehow evacuate that energy from that place. You have to let it go. If it is really a spirit, we don't know what are spirits. And we are all science people. We believe in formulas and stuff. We want proof. But even then, we know that everything cannot be explained by science. So if there is a spirit, indeed there is a spirit, then you should not tempt it. You should then let that spirit pass and try to figure out what that spirit wants and just let it go away. So Sarbajit allows that passage. They create that kind of thing, so that they go. It's not done by tantric puja and Ojha Baba and all. That is,
that's a different
I don't have a word for it. That would be considered politically accurate or proper. So let it be. But this is what they do. They cleanse the place, and when they come back, they have a bath with salt water and stuff, because salt is white, salt is pure, so it's considered to be a kind of antidote to whatever might have happened out there. So without that, they do not communicate, and this has worked for them so far.
And there's another thing, like I've like मैंने काफी लोगों को कहते हुए सुना है कि like whenever you feel fear, just clapping. That वो अलग ही वो कर देता है, like दूर कर देता है.
Another scientific explanation for this, because you're science people, I think you know about the autonomous nervous system that we have, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic nervous system is the one that tells us that there is danger, there is fear. And that is the nervous system that makes our heart beat faster, sweat come out, right? It also makes the blood rush into our legs so that we can run. So this is what the sympathetic nervous system does. Now, if you want to allay or remove that sense of fear, just clap. Now, when you clap, what happens is your nervous system activates faster.
Body
So
hack.
yes. So what happens is your body becomes alert, and you are also telling your brain, snap out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is all the play of your nervous system.
Nervous system.
And so there is a scientific explanation for that. So I agree. Just clapping or just snapping your finger, or just talking to somebody. Even if there's nobody, just talk to yourself.
Yeah.
I do that. So I was in this another experience. I was in Lonavala for a writing trip. Actually, not Lonavala, it was Khandala, I think. Yeah, Khandala it was. This is a hill station in Maharashtra, quite close to Bombay. So I went there for a writing trip. And Khandala is a hill station. So there is a main road, and my hotel room was a little 1 kilometer away from the main road. That 1 kilometer was very scary and dark. So, and you know what? I did not like the hotel food. So for dinner, I had to go to the main road and eat. And then it would become dark, which means in the darkness, I had to walk through that 1 kilometer to go to my hotel room every night. I was there for about 7-8 nights, right?
Right.
Now, going through that, one of those nights, I had a real spooky experience. So this was like, of course, there, usually when the place is so dark and lonely, dogs at least are there. How it is. But on this place, I never noticed on the first night and second night that why there were no dogs also. There were no dogs, right? I did not notice. So first night I went, I came back. Second night I came back. And then I wrote my horror novel. Third night, I think it was, when I was coming back, I was walking on that 1 kilometer road, and I suddenly a little bit inside where there was no way to go out also, and this way also, I was somewhere in the middle. I felt that something is there. Something is there behind me, on my shoulder, like just behind my shoulder. Something is there. Don't you get that insane feeling that suddenly something is watching?
Right.
So now I had no guts to turn back. I mean, turn back to look, right? I had no guts. I had my phone in my hand, and the flashlight was on. So I just put the camera on and I held it like this, so that in selfie mode, so that I could. So there was nothing. Turned like this, there was nothing. Okay, but I took a pic, right? So there was nothing. Then I kept walking, just holding it like this, so that if anything is there, there's also this theory that if ghosts see that you are watching, then they don't make apparate. They don't come. Then I walked somehow, and I can't explain that walk, but I came somehow. No running, because if you run, then dogs will run after you, and that is dangerous if they are anyway. So I kept walking briskly. I came. I saw the hotel lights. I was relieved. I came back, and then the photo is still with me. I saw that photo. It looks clear. I mean, it looks like there's nothing. But there is a kind of a darker shade within the darkness. I don't know how you can explain it, because it's all like foliage, leaves and trees and all. But there's this one patch which is darker, which is blacker. And it is just on my right side of my shoulder, like that. So there was that something. And then I was like, after that, I didn't go on that road alone. Even dinner I had early. I mean, I got something in the hotel room in the evening itself, and I had it in the night, but I didn't go out. So see, this kind of thing happens. Now, my paranormal investigator friends, when I tell them such episodes, what they tell me is that you are writing horror, so that means you are provoking that world. And they come to know that, this is a guy who is writing about us. He's writing about ghosts and spirits. So let us go and meet and say hello. So that is probably the thing, or maybe it is just my mind. My mind is crazy.
I was like watching your reel, and you were talking about whenever you write at night, they're like you feel something is watching you, and while you writing. So
yes, this was the exact place where I was writing Maya's New Husband, where I had that very creepy first feeling. I was writing my book Maya's New Husband, and that was that very horrific scene where the revelation happens and Maya goes into the sanctuary part where she sees what her husband is actually up to. And that scene was very difficult to write, because she doesn't see her husband right away. Of course, there were first body parts and all over, and it's a very creepy place. I was writing that scene. It was about, I think, 1 a.m. or something. I was writing. and then sudden this exact same place, okay,
Mhm.
this same room, and I had this sensation like something whooshed past.
Mm.
That was the thing, and then, bus, that was enough. That was enough, and I shut the Mac, ran into my bedroom and slept. Then I went right. Yeah, but can be but can be psychological. But at that
Mm.
point of time when it happens, even though something west past, you actually feel it.
Feel it. Mm.
That cold sensation does
Right.
happen to you.
Right. Right.
Kind of a sixth sense almost.
It is a sixth sense. Probably it's a sixth sense, because I think without a sixth sense, you cannot really write horror.
Right. Mm.
You need to understand fear. You need to understand how the other side manipulates you.
Right.
And this cannot happen with that normal imagination that you have.
Mm.
For instance, an author who, like deals with romance and stuff cannot really write horror very well.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm talking about the college romance. I will not name anybody. All are my friends. We are all authors, but you get the picture. Now, if you tell them to write horror, why can't they write horror? Because horror is a very pure and unadulterated feeling. See, I'll tell you. While writing love stories, you can pretend love. You can pretend romance. You can fake romance. While writing comedy is also a very tough genre to write. But while writing comedy also, you can fake laughter.
Yeah.
But you cannot fake fear. Fear is so pure and raw that you will show fear, the expression of fear, only when you're really afraid.
You
If
cannot
you are,
imagine fear. You have to feel the fear
you cannot
yourself.
imagine, and you cannot even fake it, right? If you want to
Yeah.
just
That's very difficult
like,
to fake it.
even if you ask actors, film actors, you tell them ki acting karna hai, alag alag emotion hai. You have to act as if you are in love, easy, chalta hai. You have to act as if you are happy, ho gaya. You have to act as if you are sad, ho gaya. You have to act as if you are scared. Now that is the challenge, because how will you show your lips being white? How will you show your pupils being dilated? Right? Because all these are the things that happen. How will
Yeah.
you show goosebumps? Right? So that you cannot, what fear does to you is really a physical thing. Whereas happiness and all is just, okay, we feign it. It's superficial muscles controlling it. But fear comes from deep within. And that is the reason you need to strike that chord. And horror writers, also horror readers, need to be they need to be highly intelligent, because we have to leave enough for the imagination, and the horror readers, you guys, have to imagine enough. Both ways it works.
That's interesting.
So, after your podcast with Ranveer, Beer Biceps, it was a very hit podcast. It was everywhere. So, of course, you got a lot of people's attention. So, how was that after it got hit, after it was posted? How did it affect you?
Okay. I don't know how much of this I should say, but when Ranveer, his team invited me to the podcast, I knew who Beer Biceps was, but I did not know Beer Biceps very well. So I had to do my research, and of course, then I saw that, okay, this is this crazily famous guy who almost all of India is following. And he, of course, he pops up on my timeline. He used to, and he is so wonderful, I'll tell you. Now, as a person that I have met him, but at that time, I did not really know the extent of his popularity. Sometimes it happens. So I went, and even Ranveer did not give me any kind of hint that what we are going to really talk about, what the podcast is going to be. He just said that bring your horror experiences. We'll talk about it in his own inimitable style. He told me that. We'll just talk about it. We'll just have a chill chat. So just come. When I went and we recorded the podcast, it was fun because it was so natural. Nothing of it was scripted. Not a single question, not a single answer that I gave. Everything just went organically. And that is the reason the podcast became such a big hit. Because usually what happens when anybody comes, they prepare that what is to be said and what is to be. And it's good that I went without any preparation because it came out so organically. And I think you guys who watched it
Yeah,
felt
yeah,
that. And that is the
Yeah.
reason we have now crossed like 1.5 million
yeah.
views within 2 weeks, which is like
Absolutely.
insanely
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
it's mind
Now,
blowing too.
what has happened, because of course, when we were said that we are going to do a lot of more podcasts together, web series,
Right,
and sorry, a series of podcasts, which I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward to, because now I enjoy that rapport that we have built.
right, right.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's also about the thing that people are now noticing horror, which
Hmm.
was happening, which was anyway happening.
Right,
But
right.
now that it has become a kind of a household name,
Now
like,
horror
okay,
isn't like on a spotlight now.
yes,
Yeah.
and plus the thing is that even I have got encouraged
Mhm.
from Ranveer's wonderful podcast to have to share my stories on Instagram more. I was not doing this earlier. I was only
Right,
writing
right.
books,
Mm.
right? But now I have become more of a kind of a amenable person, more approachable. I mean, I so that's working out.
Right,
So
right.
after this podcast, I would always get invited to podcast because
Mhm.
the thing is, I am a social media. I have always been active on social media.
Right,
So
right.
it's not just Ranveer. Even from 2015, the producers
Mhm.
have been approaching me just because I am on social media. So all these web series that I'm talking to you about,
Right,
the
right.
4 web series that I'm writing, none of these I have gone and pitched. All of
Yeah.
these, the producers have come to me and said, "कि आप
Inbound
हमारे लिए कुछ लिख
ones.
के दो." So the same thing is about also publishers and agents, and so I'm very lucky in that regard. I'm blessed in that regard. I thank my readers a lot for giving me that kind of visibility right from 2015, right from my first book. My Your Husband was on number one for 18 months on Amazon India Horror, which is like, I can't believe it
Yeah,
now
it's
in
very difficult
retrospect.
to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, and without any marketing, without any promotion, I did not have a budget for marketing at all.
Mhm.
Okay, so now what is happening? What has changed is, books wise, I was already on the cusp.
Mhm.
It's already going high. The thing is, I have become more confident of sharing my stories. That's it.
Mm.
The invites are the same. I used to get invited earlier also to like 10 to 12 podcasts a month. Now also it is the
Yeah.
same. I mean, yeah, but they're like more enthusiastic people. And I always believe in growing visibility, right? So
Right, right.
that's why I never say no to anybody. But it is what is happening is now I feel like I should share stories.
Mm.
Because the comments that came on the Ranveer show, if you go through the comments,
I have
Yeah.
apart
gone
Yeah.
through
from,
that. Yeah.
you will see that largely, or I would say all of them, the comments are positive.
Yeah.
There is no, people have enjoyed the podcast like anything. So there is no trolling, there is no
Mm.
abusing,
Especially
there were no,
who don't believe in horror, they were like also
yes,
writing positive comments. So yeah.
yes, that is the surprising part. That's what I was going to talk
Mhm.
about. So the skeptics, we call them the skeptics.
Right,
So
right.
even the skeptics have not come out and said that
Mm.
ye kya bakwas hai, like nothing like that.
Right, right.
So we
Mm.
actually have got such a positive feedback for the podcast that I'm happy that horror has taken such a space, because see,
Mm.
after all, it's all about busting myths, right?
Right, right.
So there is a lot of misconception about horror, about the
Mhm.
paranormal. People have a lot of wrong ideas, and because of that, some people are taking advantage of it also. Like
Right,
we
right.
just spoke about the black magicians, right?
Mm.
Now that
Mm.
is
Yeah.
taking advantage. Now, if you go in the small villages, tantrics and ojas will come and say,
Yeah.
100 rupees do bhoot bhagayenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is bullshit.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
but
is.
people fall to it. People fall to it because people don't know. So it is our work as people within the horror genre to
Mhm.
spread this work out. So
Right.
I, Jay, Sarbajit, Ranveer,
Mhm.
to an extent, in his own very big way, astronomical way, we are
Right.
very small compared to him, but we are all busting these myths. We are all
Yeah.
telling people that we are all attempting to show the true side of the paranormal, of horror, of fear, why it is good. We are showing
But
that to people.
yeah.
And that is the change that has happened. It has given me this platform, of course, I will not deny that,
Mhm.
to speak out, which is what
That's
I'm not after money or fame and all. If I was after money, I would have still run that coaching class and made my like 10 crores a year and more.
Yeah,
I'm not after that. Now that 10 would have become more than, I don't
more
know,
than
inflation and all stuff, right? So, so no, I'm not after that. I'm, I'm more into what my passion is.
mm,
I'm more into talking about the stuff that people get confused about, to remove that kind of, it's a subject of my interest. So if it's a subject of my interest, I want to educate people about what is right and what is wrong. So that's why even when I share a horror story, I give a scientific explanation behind it. Like I told you about my sleep paralysis, but I
yeah,
told you it
Yeah.
can be explained by science.
scientists. Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't want to just raise red flags everywhere that I go. That's
yeah.
not the thing. Yeah. I think I spoke a lot, but you
Anyway,
can see that it's a subject of my interest. So obviously,
yeah.
you'll have to
Even
indulge
we were,
me.
yeah, even we were feeling engaging in this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was very interesting talking to you. Really, we can listen to you like
Mm,
you are a very engaging person. You are a very interesting person.
yeah.
Thank you
Like
so much.
if we had a more time with us, like
Right.
I could listen to 4 to 5 hours. Not
Yeah.
even like
Same.
exaggerating. Really, I could listen to you for 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah. It's very
So
fun and
yeah,
engaging
we'll make,
conversation. Yeah.
yes. No worries. We'll talk more.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
and of course, I'm there on Instagram for your audience. I'm
Yep.
actually also going to start a YouTube channel where I can talk more, because Instagram has its limit of
Yeah, yeah.
like only 15-minute talk. So I am coming back on YouTube, because I used to have a YouTube channel, but at that time it was about a totally different concept. I was talking about writing and all.
Right,
So
right.
I'm coming back, and I'm coming back with a
Mm,
horror podcast and several other things in the pipeline. I want to do this right.
nice.
So yes, I also have a lit fest known as Litventure. I have a lit fest known as FrightVenture.
Mm-hmm.
FrightVenture is only for horror. So,
Right.
and that FrightVenture we usually do online so that people all over
Mm-hmm.
India can attend.
Yeah.
So I will be announcing that on my Instagram timeline and Facebook and Twitter
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. Keep watching, and that will be fun. If you love horror, there's nothing better than listening to real life horror
Horror
stories from
stories.
people who create horror.
Right.
So we are doing that. We are doing it. We are doing a lot. And I'll just end this with one thing. Horror, Indian horror especially, is so rich. We
Mm,
have such a diversity of culture.
right.
Every 100 kilometers, India changes.
Yeah.
Even the way of greeting people changes from namaste to
Changes.
namaskar to whatever, ram ram
Suprabhat and
to whatever.
yeah.
It keeps changing. This
Mm,
is so amazing. The folklore changes. The horror that we have in India is so vast and rich. I'm talking about the horror stories.
stories.
And we want to actually bring those stories out to the world.
Mm,
We want to show the world that your vampires and werewolves are good. But look at our stories, they are better. We want
yeah.
to show
Yeah.
that our, even if we ourselves laugh at our Chudel, Die and Pishach,
Yeah, yeah.
the mythology behind them, sorry, the
Mm,
mythology behind them is much richer than the mythology behind vampires and werewolves. What is vampire and werewolf? They are two-line stories. I mean, the mythology behind them.
right.
I'm not talking about the
Mm,
stories itself.
right, right.
Of course, intelligent people can write a whole Twilight out of it,
Mm-hmm.
but ours are much richer. And it is one of my missions in life, which will be accomplished by the means of, with the support of people like you, to
Right.
take Indian horror out into the world. That's what I want to do. Just like how Japanese horror has become famous all over,
Yeah.
Korean horror has become
Mm,
Yeah,
famous
yeah.
all over. Indian horror is much richer than that.
mm.
And that Indian horror we want to bring out to the world. And here I think I should say the Jai Hind.
Jai
So
Hind.
that is what we want to do. Our horror is also the best.
Let's go. It was very fun conversation. Yeah.
All
So
right.
Thank you so
So
much.
to sum it up, thank you so much for coming to our podcast, Mr. Neil. And we are really looking forward to it. Thank you for being our first guest on this podcast.
yeah.
It was really interesting. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
And
Thanks
to
so
the
much for
people
having me.
watching,
Yeah. And you
make
will
sure to
get
buy
all
his
the
books.
social media
And we are really
links.
looking forward
Yeah.
to your, web series.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to
Yes.
watch those.
Very
I
fun.
don't know. That
And
will be around 2-3 years. I don't know how much time it
We'll wait
takes,
for
because we
that.
are still at the very nascent stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because we want to do something that is really
Mm,
memorable.
right.
I don't want to make a show that people will just watch and forget. I
Mm,
want to make something that will touch your heart.
right. Right.
So Yeah, so I'll take time for it.
We'll wait for that.
Mm,
Excited for that as well. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.